The celestial palace stood tall against the purple sky of planet Velruna. Its crystal towers reached so high that clouds formed around their peaks. Today, the palace was busier than ever. Delegates from across the galaxy had arrived for the annual summit of the Galactic Coalition. Ships of every size and shape filled the landing platforms. Princess Nari walked through the grand reception hall with perfect grace. Her skin shimmered with soft blue and gold patterns that moved like living light. She was young for her species, only 127 years old. But she had completed her studies at the top academy and felt ready to prove herself to the galaxy. She wore robes made from stellar silk, a material so rare that only royalty could afford it. Her attendants followed behind her in a neat formation. Everything about her showed wealth, power, and thousands of years of civilization. The reception hall was filled with beings from dozens of worlds. The tall krill stood in one corner, their 4 arms gesturing as they talked. The floating Mirath drifted near the ceiling, their gas-formed bodies glowing with inner light. Representatives from the ancient Thalan Empire discussed trade agreements with the insect-like Vex. Then, Nari saw the human delegation arrive. There were only 3 of them. They walked into the massive hall looking very small compared to the other groups. Their leader wore a simple dark blue uniform with silver trim. No precious metals, no exotic fabrics, just plain, practical clothing. "The humans have arrived, Your Highness," her chief attendant whispered. Nari studied them with interest. Humans were new to galactic society. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. The Velrunian Empire had been exploring the stars for 40,000 years. To Nari, humans were like children playing at being adults. The human leader approached and bowed respectfully. He was shorter than Nari, with dark hair and calm eyes. His face showed no emotion. "Your Highness," he said in perfect galactic common, "I am Captain Tay of Earth. Thank you for allowing us to attend this summit." Nari inclined her head slightly. "Captain Tay, welcome to Velruna. I hope your journey was not too difficult for your vessels." It was a small insult. Everyone knew that human ships were slower and less advanced than most others. But Tai's expression did not change. "The journey was smooth, Your Highness." "Your planet is beautiful." "Yes," Nari agreed. "We have had 40,000 years to perfect it." She let the number hang in the air for a moment. "How long has Earth been civilized? 2,000 years? 3? "Recorded civilization goes back about 6,000 years," Tai replied calmly. "But we are still learning." One of Nari's attendants laughed quietly. The princess smiled. "Learning is good. We Velrunians believe that education is the foundation of society. Of course, some species learn faster than others." Tai nodded. "That is true, Your Highness. We are grateful to species like yours who share their knowledge." Nari was not sure if he understood her insult or not. His face showed nothing. She decided he was probably too simple to realize she was mocking him. Throughout the evening, she continued to make small comments. When the delegates discussed their ships, she mentioned how the human vessels still used adapted krill engines instead of original designs. When they talked about science, she pointed out that humans had contributed only 3 papers to the Galactic Science Database, while Velrunians had contributed over 2 million. Tay responded to everything with the same calm politeness. He agreed when she said humans were new to space. He nodded when she mentioned their limited technology. He smiled slightly when she called their achievements charming. The other delegates started to notice. Some looked uncomfortable. The krill ambassador, who was very old and wise, watched Nari with disapproval. But the princess was enjoying herself too much to care. "Tell me, Captain Tay," she said during dinner, "what does Earth consider its greatest achievement?" Tay thought for a moment. "That is difficult to say, Your Highness. Different people would give different answers." Then what is your answer? I would say our ability to keep trying, Tay said. Humans are good at not giving up. Nari laughed. Her bioluminescent patterns flickered with amusement. Persistence. How practical. She looked at her attendants. The Velrunian Empire's greatest achievement is our mastery of quantum mathematics. We have solved problems that existed before some species even evolved. That is impressive, Tay said. Yes, it is. Nari sipped her drink. I suppose not every species can work at that level. Some are built for simpler things. The Krill ambassador made a disapproving sound, but Nari ignored him. She was young and proud, and she wanted everyone to know how superior her civilization was. Tai simply nodded and continued eating. He did not argue. He did not defend his species. He just sat there, quiet and calm. This annoyed Nari more than if he had gotten angry. She wanted him to react, to show some emotion, but he remained as still as stone. You are very quiet, Captain, she observed. I prefer to listen and learn, Your Highness, he replied. As you said, humans are still students in this galaxy? Indeed. Nari felt satisfied. The human knew his place. As the dinner ended and delegates began to leave, Tay bowed to her again. Thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness. Tomorrow's tour of the Great Archive sounds fascinating. I am sure you will find it educational, Nari said. Try not to get lost. It contains more knowledge than your entire planet has ever produced. I will do my best, Tay said with a small smile. He walked away with his two companions. They left as quietly as they had arrived, causing no fuss, making no grand exit. Nari watched them go. She felt pleased with herself. She had shown the human his place without being too cruel. She had demonstrated Velrunian superiority with facts and grace. Her chief attendant leaned close. Your Highness, perhaps you were a bit harsh. Harsh? Nari turned to her. I simply stated facts. Humans are primitive compared to us. It is better they understand this now. The Krill ambassador seemed displeased. The Krill are too soft, Nari said. They think everyone should be treated equally, regardless of their achievements. But that is not realistic. Some civilizations are greater than others. She looked back at the door where the humans had exited. Such a small, insignificant delegation. In a few days, they would return to their little blue planet, and she would never think of them again. Nari had no idea how wrong she was. The next morning, the delegates gathered at the entrance to the Great Archive. The building was even more impressive than the palace. It was carved from a single piece of white crystal that seemed to glow from within. The entrance was a massive arch covered in symbols from every written language in the galaxy. Princess Nari stood at the front of the group, ready to lead the tour. She had spent years studying in this archive. She knew every hall, every collection, every secret it held. This was her chance to show the galaxy the true power of Velrunian knowledge. Welcome to the Great Archive, she announced. This building contains the collected wisdom of 40,000 years. Every discovery, every invention, every work of art created by our civilization is preserved here. The delegates looked around in wonder. Even the ancient Krill seemed impressed. The archive stretched as far as the eye could see, with levels upon levels rising into the distance. Captain Tay stood near the back of the group. He looked at everything with quiet attention. His two companions took notes on small data pads. Nari led them through the Hall of History first. Holographic displays showed the rise of Velrunian civilization, the first ships, the first contact with alien life, the formation of the Empire. Thousands of years passed by in minutes of recorded history. Your species had not even left its caves when we built our first space station, Nari commented, glancing at Tai. He nodded. We developed slowly, he agreed. They moved to the Hall of Technology next. Here, inventions from across millennia were displayed. The first quantum computer, the gravity manipulator, the consciousness transfer device. Each one was a breakthrough that had changed the galaxy. "Do humans have anything like this?" Nari asked, pointing to a device that could create matter from pure energy. "No, Your Highness," Tay said. "We are still learning basic energy manipulation." "I see." Nari smiled. "Perhaps in another few thousand years." The Krill ambassador spoke up. "Every species develops at its own pace, Your Highness. Speed is not the only measure of worth." "Of course not," Nari said sweetly, "but it does indicate capability." They continued through various halls. The Hall of Art, where sculptures and paintings defied description. The Hall of Music, where sounds from across the ages played in perfect harmony. The Hall of Medicine, where cures for 1,000 diseases were documented. With each hall, Nari made sure to point out how far ahead Velrunian civilization was. She did it politely with smiles and gentle words. But the message was clear. Humans were far, far behind. Finally, they reached the Hall of Mathematical Proofs. This was Nari's favorite section. Mathematics was the purest form of knowledge, the one field where there could be no argument about superiority. The hall was filled with holographic equations. They floated in the air, beautiful and complex. Some were simple enough for anyone to understand. Others were so advanced that only specialists could even read them. At the center of the hall was the Kelvin theorem. It hung in the air like a star, glowing with soft golden light. The equation was enormous, with thousands of variables and functions spiraling in 3 dimensions. "This," Nari said with pride, "is the Kelvin theorem. It has remained unsolved for 3,000 years. The finest mathematical minds in the galaxy have attempted to prove it. None have succeeded." The delegates gathered around it. Even those who knew nothing about mathematics could sense its importance. "Our greatest scholars study this for decades just to understand what it asks," Nari continued. "To solve it would require a level of genius that appears perhaps once every 1,000 years." She walked closer to the glowing equation. "I myself have spent 2 years studying just the foundational principles. It is humbling, even for someone raised in a civilization as advanced as ours." Nari turned to look at the group. Her eyes found Captain Tay. He was standing very close to the theorem, studying it carefully. "I suppose humans have their own mathematical traditions?" she asked. Tay did not look away from the equation. "We do, though they are simpler than this." "Simpler?" Nari repeated. "Yes, I imagine they would be." She moved to stand beside him. "You see, Captain, mathematics of this level requires not just intelligence, but thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Your species learned space travel by copying Krill technology. There is no shame in that, but it does mean you missed the foundational development." Now Tay looked at her. His dark eyes were calm. "We call it adaptation, Your Highness. Learning from others is not weakness." "Of course not," Nari said. "But there is a difference between learning and truly understanding. A child can learn to repeat words without knowing what they mean." Some of her attendants laughed quietly. Even a few of the other delegates smiled. The human was being put in his place, and everyone knew it. "Your Highness," the Krill ambassador said with a warning tone. But Nari was not finished. She felt powerful standing here, surrounded by the proof of her civilization's greatness. The human stood there so quietly, so humbly. She wanted him to understand the vast gap between their peoples. "Tell me, Captain Tay," she said, "what would you say is humanity's greatest achievement? You mentioned persistence yesterday, but surely there must be something more concrete. A discovery? An invention?" Tay was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We ended our last World War 70 years ago. Since then we have had peace." Nari blinked. "Peace? That is your greatest achievement?" "Yes." Not a scientific discovery? Not a technological breakthrough? Those are important, Tay said, but peace is more difficult. It requires everyone to work together. Nari laughed. She could not help it. The sound echoed through the hall like music. Oh, Captain, that is very sweet, very human. She shook her head, still smiling. You see peace as an achievement, because your species is so young, so prone to violence. Velrunians achieved lasting peace 15,000 years ago. It is not special to us. It is simply normal. Her attendants nodded in agreement. One of them whispered, "Such a primitive perspective." Tay's expression did not change. He simply looked at Nari with those calm, dark eyes. "Perhaps you are right, Your Highness," he said quietly. "We do view things differently." Indeed. Nari felt satisfied. She had made her point. The human understood his place now. She clapped her hands once. "Well, shall we continue the tour? There is much more to see." As the group began to move, Nari noticed that Tai looked back at the Kelvin theorem one more time. He stared at it for several seconds, his face thoughtful. Then he turned and followed the group, silent as always. Nari smiled to herself. The human was probably trying to understand the equation and realizing how impossible it was. Let him look. Let him see what real intelligence could create. Maybe it would teach him some humility about his species' limitations. The tour continued for another 2 hours. They saw libraries, laboratories, meditation chambers, and cultural exhibits. Through it all, Nari maintained her pleasant superiority, pointing out again and again how advanced Velrunian civilization was. And through it all, Captain Tay remained quiet, polite, and seemingly unbothered by her words. This should have warned her. This should have told her that something was not quite right. But Nari was young and proud. She did not see the warning signs. She would understand soon enough. That evening, Princess Nari was in her private chambers when the alarms began. The sound was terrible. It was a deep, pulsing wail that she had only heard during drills. Every citizen of Velruna knew what it meant. Planetary emergency. Nari ran to her window. Outside, the sky was wrong. There was a dark spot near the moon, like a hole in space itself. As she watched, it seemed to grow larger. The stars around it bent and twisted, their light pulled into spirals. Her communicator buzzed. "Your Highness, you must come to the emergency command center immediately." Nari did not waste time asking questions. She gathered her robes and ran. The command center was chaos. Scientists and military officers crowded around holographic displays. Her father, the Emperor, stood at the center, his face grave. He was over 3,000 years old and had seen many crises. Nari had never seen him look frightened before. Now, he looked frightened. "What is happening?" Nari asked. The chief scientist, an elderly Velrunian named Kiros, answered. "A quantum rift, Your Highness. It appeared spontaneously near our moon approximately 15 minutes ago." "A quantum rift?" Nari knew the term from her studies. They were theoretical disasters, tears in the fabric of space-time itself. "I thought those were only possible near black holes." "We thought so too," Kiros said grimly. "We were wrong." On the main display, the rift rotated slowly. Data scrolled beside it in columns of numbers that made Nari's head hurt just looking at them. "How bad is it?" she asked. Her father turned to her. "If it reaches critical mass, it will collapse this entire solar system into a singularity. Everything within 3 light years will be destroyed." The words hit Nari like a physical blow. The entire system. But there are 18 billion people on Velruna alone. "We are aware," the Emperor said. Kiros pulled up another display. "We are already evacuating as many as we can. Every ship in orbit is being loaded. But we cannot possibly save everyone in time. How much time do we have? 18 hours until critical mass. Maybe less. 18 hours. Nari felt her legs weaken. Around her, the greatest minds of her civilization worked frantically. Holographic models of the rift rotated and shifted as they tried different solutions. The other delegates began arriving at the command center. The Krill ambassador came with his science advisors. The Mirath sent their best mathematicians. Even the small species contributed what they could. Captain Tay arrived with his two companions. He stood quietly at the back of the room, watching the displays. "Can we destroy it?" the Emperor asked. "Use weapons to disrupt it?" "No," Kiros said. "Any energy we pour into it will only feed it. Make it grow faster." "What about moving the planet?" "Not enough time. We would need months to evacuate and relocate." "Then we must solve it mathematically," the Emperor said. "Calculate a way to close it safely." Kiros nodded. "We are already working on it. But, Your Majesty, the calculations are incredibly complex. Even with our quantum computers running at full capacity, we estimate it will take 40 hours to find a solution. We have 18 hours. I know." Silence fell over the command center. 18 hours. 40 hours needed. The math was simple and terrible. Nari watched her father's face. He had ruled for 1,000 years. He had guided their empire through wars and peace, disasters and triumphs. But now, he looked helpless. "There must be something," the Emperor said. "Some way to speed up the calculations." "We are using every computer on the planet," Kiros replied. "Every scientist is working on different parts of the problem, but quantum mathematics at this level, there are no shortcuts, Your Majesty." The Krill ambassador stepped forward. "We can link our computers with yours, share processing power." "Every bit helps," Kiros said, "but it will not be enough. We might cut the time to 35 hours, still not fast enough." Other species offered their help. The Mirath shared their unique mathematical approaches. The Thalin provided their most advanced algorithms. Each contribution helped a little, but not enough. Nari felt sick. She looked around the command center at all these brilliant minds, all this advanced technology. 40,000 years of civilization, and they could not solve this problem in time. The display showed the evacuation efforts, ships leaving the planet in streams of light. But so many more remained on the ground. So many people who would die because mathematics took too long. She thought about the Great Archive. All that knowledge, all that history. In 18 hours it would be gone, crushed into nothing. "There must be a way," she whispered. Captain Tay moved forward. He had been so quiet that Nari had almost forgotten he was there. He walked up to the central console where the rift data was displayed. "May I?" he asked quietly. Kiros looked at him with confusion. "Captain, may I see the data? The full calculations?" "Captain Tay," Kiros said gently, "this is quantum mathematics at the highest level. Even our best scientists need years of training to understand these principles. I mean, no disrespect, but—" "Please," Tay said simply. The Emperor looked at him, then he nodded. "Show him." Kiros hesitated, then transferred the data to a smaller display near Tay. The human studied it carefully. His face showed concentration but no confusion. Nari moved closer. "Captain, what are you doing?" He did not look at her. His eyes moved across the data, taking it in. "Looking for a solution." "A solution?" Despite everything, Nari felt a flash of her earlier superiority. "Captain, our finest scientists are working on this. What could you possibly—" "Your Highness," her father said quietly. "Let him work." Nari fell silent. She watched as Ty's fingers moved across the display, pulling up different sections of data. He looked at the rift from different angles. He ran through the equations that Kiros had already attempted. Minutes passed. The rift on the main display grew larger. Time was running out. Finally, Tay stepped back from the console. He looked at the Emperor. "I need to return to my ship," he said. "Your ship?" Kiros asked. "Why?" "I have something that might help. A computational system. It is different from yours." "Different how?" Tay paused. "Less elegant, but faster for certain problems." The Emperor did not hesitate. "Go. Quickly." Tay bowed and ran from the command center. His two companions followed. Nari stared after him. "Father, what can a human ship possibly have that we do not? Their technology is centuries behind ours." The Emperor watched the door where Tay had exited. "I do not know, daughter. But right now, we have nothing to lose." Kiros returned to his calculations. The other scientists continued their work. The evacuation continued, and the rift kept growing. 15 minutes later, Tay returned. He carried a small black case. It looked plain and unremarkable. He set it on the console and opened it. Inside was a data core. It glowed with a soft blue light. "This is it?" Kiros asked. "Yes," Tay said. "May I interface it with your systems?" "Of course." Tay connected the core to the Velrunian computers. Immediately, the displays began showing new data. The architecture was strange, messy. It broke rules of computational elegance that Velrunian scientists had followed for thousands of years. But something about it was different. Something about it was fast. "What is this?" Nari whispered. Tai's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "We call it quantum neural hybrid processing. It combines quantum computing with neural network patterns." "That should not work," Kiros said. "The two systems are fundamentally incompatible." "They are," Tay agreed. "But we made them work anyway." He began feeding the rift data into his system. The Velrunian scientists watched in disbelief as the calculations began processing at incredible speed. The command center fell into stunned silence as Tay's system began processing the rift data. Numbers cascaded across the displays faster than the eye could follow. The Velrunian computers had been running calculations in neat, organized patterns. This human system was chaos. It tried solutions that made no logical sense. It explored paths that should have been dead ends. It broke every rule of efficient computation. And yet, it was working. Kiros leaned over the console, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with confusion. This is completely wrong. These algorithms should not produce results. They are wasteful, redundant, chaotic." "Yes," Tay said, not looking away from his work. "They are. But they are working." "Yes." Princess Nari moved closer to watch. She had studied computational theory for years. What she was seeing should have been impossible. The system was trying thousands of wrong answers every second. "I do not understand," she said. "Your computers are making mistakes." "They are," Tay agreed. His fingers continued to move across the interface. "Human brains make mistakes too. We are not purely logical. We guess. We feel. We try things that should not work. That is inefficient." "It is." Tay pulled up a new display. "But sometimes inefficiency is faster than perfection. Your computers think in straight lines, looking for the elegant solution. Mine thinks like a human, exploring 1,000 wrong paths to find the right one." Kiros shook his head in wonder. "Brute force. You are using brute force computation at a quantum level." "We prefer to call it creative problem solving," Tay said with a slight smile. The Emperor stepped closer. "Will it work?" "I do not know yet, Your Majesty, but it is faster than your method." On the main display, the rift continued to grow. But on Tay's screen, solutions were beginning to form. The system discarded hundreds of possibilities every minute, narrowing down to viable options. 1 hour passed, then 2. The Velrunian scientists watched in disbelief as the human system processed what should have taken them days. Some of them started to help, feeding additional data into Ty's computers. Others checked his results, verifying that the calculations were actually correct despite looking wrong. Nari stood beside her father, watching it all. She felt strange, confused. Everything she had believed about humanity, about her own civilization's superiority, was cracking like ice. This human, this man she had mocked yesterday, was saving her world. "How did you develop this?" she asked quietly. Tay glanced at her briefly before returning to his work. "We had to. Your Highness was right yesterday. We learned space travel from the Krill. We learned quantum computing from the Thalen. We adapted technology from a dozen species." "Exactly," Nari said. "You copied others." "Yes," Ty said. "But we also added something of our own. Human creativity, human stubbornness. We took elegant systems and made them messy, because humans are messy. We break rules because we do not know enough to follow them properly." He pulled up a new set of calculations. "Sometimes not knowing the rules is an advantage. We try things that experienced scientists know will not work. And sometimes we are right and they are wrong." Another hour passed. The rift was growing dangerously large now. The evacuation was nearly complete. But billions still remained on the planet. Then Ty stopped. He stared at his display. "I have it," he said quietly. Kiros rushed over. The Emperor moved close. Nari held her breath. On the screen was a solution. A way to close the rift safely. The mathematics was complex, but clear. Kiros checked it once, twice, 3 times. His patterns flickered through colors Nari had never seen before. "It works," he whispered. "By the ancients, it works." The Emperor put his hand on Tay's shoulder. "Can we implement it?" "Yes," Kiros said. "We can use our gravity manipulators to create the counterbalance. It will take approximately 1 hour. Then begin immediately." The command center burst into motion. Scientists rushed to prepare the equipment. Military officers coordinated the planet's gravity manipulation grid. Everyone had a task. Tay stepped back from the console. He looked tired. Nari noticed that his hands were shaking slightly. "You saved us," she said. He shook his head. "Your scientists will implement the solution. I just found it faster." "Because of your chaotic system?" "Yes." "It should not work," Nari said. "It breaks every principle of efficient computation." Tay smiled slightly. "Humans break a lot of principles, Your Highness. It is one of our talents." The gravity manipulators began to activate. On the main display, invisible forces reached out toward the rift. Carefully, precisely. They began to apply the solution that Tay's system had calculated. The rift began to shrink. A cheer went up in the command center. Scientists hugged each other. Military officers relaxed for the first time in hours. Even the Emperor allowed himself a small smile. But Tay was not finished. While everyone celebrated, he returned to his console. Nari watched as he pulled up a different display. It showed the Kelvin theorem, the impossible equation from the Great Archive. "What are you doing?" she asked. Tay did not answer. His fingers moved across the interface, entering data. His system began processing the theorem the same way it had processed the rift problem. Chaotic, messy, breaking all the rules. Nari's eyes widened. "Captain, that theorem has remained unsolved for 3,000 years. "I know," Tay said calmly. "Our greatest minds have attempted it. I know. You cannot possibly—" The display chimed. Tay stopped typing. On the screen was a proof, a complete, verified proof of the Kelvin theorem. Nari stared at it. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kiros saw it too. He rushed over, his patterns blazing with shock. He checked the proof. Then he checked it again. Then he called other scientists over. "It is correct," one of them whispered. "The proof is correct." "Impossible," another said. "We have worked on this for centuries." It is correct, Kiros repeated. He looked at Tay with something like awe. How? Tay gestured to the proof. The answer was always there. You just needed to stop looking for elegance and start looking for truth. He began typing commands, transferring the proof to the archive's database. This should be available to all species, free to study, free to use. You are giving it away? Nari asked. This proof is it is priceless. You could demand anything for it. Why would I do that? Tay asked, looking genuinely confused. Knowledge should be shared. How else will we all grow? The Emperor approached. He looked at Tay with new eyes. You have done more than save our planet, Captain. You have given the galaxy a gift that will echo through the ages. Tay bowed. I am honored, Your Majesty, but I only did what needed to be done. On the main display, the rift was nearly closed now. The crisis was over. Velruna was saved, and the impossible theorem was solved. Nari looked at the human standing before her. Small, short-lived, from a primitive civilization, and absolutely brilliant. All her mockery, all her pride, all her certainty of Velrunian superiority crashed down around her. She had been so wrong, so terribly, completely wrong. Captain Tay, she said quietly, I owe you an apology. He looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. Your Highness, there is no need. There is every need, Nari interrupted. I was cruel to you. I mocked your species. I treated you as inferior. Her bioluminescent patterns turned deep purple, the color of shame. You saved my world, and I do not deserve your kindness. Tay smiled gently. Your Highness, you are young. You will learn. That is all any of us can do. Young. Nari almost laughed. She was 127 years old, but compared to Tay's wisdom, she felt like a child. The rift closed completely. The alarms stopped. Velruna was safe. And Princess Nari's education in humility had only just begun. Dawn came to Velruna in shades of pink and gold. The crisis had passed. The planet was safe. People emerged from shelters, looked at the sky, and wept with relief. Ships that had been preparing to flee returned to their landing platforms. In the Celestial Palace, the celebration continued through the night. Every delegate wanted to meet Captain Tay. Every scientist wanted to discuss his methods. The Emperor himself declared a planetary holiday in honor of Earth. But Tai was not in the palace. Princess Nari found him in the hangar bay at sunrise. He was loading equipment onto his shuttle with the help of his two companions. They worked quietly and efficiently, asking for no help from the palace staff. Captain Tay, Nari called out. He turned and bowed. Your Highness, good morning. You are leaving? She felt something painful in her chest. But the celebration has just begun. My father wants to award you the Star of Velruna, our highest honor. The Galactic Council wants to recognize your achievement. That is very kind, Tay said, but we should return to Earth. We have been away for several days. Several days? Nari moved closer. Captain, you saved our entire civilization, billions of lives. You solved the Kelvin theorem. You deserve more than just a few days of celebration. Tay smiled gently. Your Highness, we did not save your people for celebrations or awards. We did it because it needed to be done. But you must accept something, Nari insisted. Her patterns flickered with distress. The Star of Velruna is the greatest honor we can offer. Please. I appreciate the gesture, Tai said, but honestly, the knowledge that your people are safe is reward enough. He returned to his packing. Nari watched him, confused and frustrated. She had spent hours planning how to apologize properly, how to make up for her cruelty. She had imagined giving him honors, titles, wealth, but he wanted none of it. I was wrong about humanity, she said suddenly. About you. I was arrogant and cruel. I mocked you when I should have respected you. Tay paused in his work. Your Highness, you were not entirely wrong. Humans are young. We are primitive in many ways. Our technology is adapted from others. These are facts. But I used those facts as weapons, Nari said. Her voice was quiet. I wanted to make you feel small. I know. And you said nothing. You let me insult you. Tay set down the case he was holding and turned to face her fully. Your Highness, I am a diplomat. Part of my job is to endure insults with grace. But more than that, I understood where your words came from. Where they came from? Pride in your civilization, Tay said. Love for your people. A desire to prove yourself worthy of your position. These are not bad things. But I hurt you. A little, Tay admitted. But I have been hurt before. It passes. Nari felt tears forming in her eyes. In her species, tears were rare and precious, only shed in moments of deep emotion. How can you be so kind, after everything I said? Because anger serves no purpose, Tay replied. Your Highness, you are 127 years old. In Velrunian terms, you are very young. You have lived in a civilization that has been the greatest in the galaxy for thousands of years. Of course you are proud. Of course you believe in your own superiority. He walked closer to her. But you are also capable of learning. You admitted you were wrong. You came here to apologize. That takes courage and wisdom. I should have seen it sooner, Nari said. Your intelligence, your capability, it was right in front of me. Perhaps, Tay said. But sometimes we need to be humbled before we can see clearly. I am not angry with you for that. You should be. Why? Tay asked simply. What good would it do? Nari had no answer. She wiped her eyes. The Kelvin theorem, you gave it to the entire galaxy. Do you understand what that means? You could have kept it for Earth, used it to advance your civilization beyond all others. That would be selfish, Tay said. Knowledge belongs to everyone. If we hoarded it, we would be no better than... He paused. Than me, Nari finished. No better than me, treating others as inferior. I would not have put it that way, Ty said gently. They stood in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun rose higher, painting the hangar in warm light. Tell me something, Nari said. Your computational system, the quantum neural hybrid. How did humanity develop it? Tay leaned against his shuttle. Necessity. When we first reached the stars, we realized how far behind we were. Other species had thousands of years of development. We had decades. We could not compete with pure technology. So you adapted. Yes, we learned from everyone. The Krill taught us about engines. The Thalen shared quantum principles. The Mirath showed us energy manipulation. We took all of it and mixed it together in ways that probably seemed wrong to the original teachers. Like your computers, Nari said. Chaotic and messy. Exactly, Ty smiled. We combined everything we learned with what we already had. Human intuition, human creativity, human stubbornness. The result was imperfect but effective. It was more than effective, Nari said. It was revolutionary. Maybe, Ty said. But it came from humility, not pride. We knew we were behind, so we learned from everyone. We were not afraid to admit our limitations. The words struck Nari deeply. She thought about the past 2 days, about her constant need to prove Velrunian superiority. She had been so afraid of appearing weak that she had attacked the humans' perceived weaknesses. You are wise, she said quietly. I am old, Tay replied with a smile. For a human, I have 42 years of experience. 42? Nari stared at him. But that is an infant by our standards. I know. I will likely die before I reach 80 years. Maybe sooner, given the dangers of space travel. The thought horrified Nari. This brilliant man who had saved her world and solved the unsolvable would be dead before she was even considered middle-aged. "That is not fair," she said. "Life rarely is," Tai said. "But that is another reason why humans act the way we do. We do not have time to waste on pride or mockery. We do not have thousands of years to learn from our mistakes. We must act now, learn now, grow now." He gestured to the sky. "Every human you meet is burning bright and brief. We cannot afford to be petty or cruel. There is too much to do and too little time to do it." "That is why you shared the theorem," Nari realized, "because you will not live to see all the good it does." "Yes," Tay said, "but others will. Velrunians, Krill, Mirath, all the species of the galaxy. They will build on that knowledge for thousands of years. That is enough for me." Nari felt something break inside her. All her certainty, all her pride, all her belief in Velrunian superiority washed away like sand. This short-lived human understood things she had never considered despite her years of education. "I want to learn from you," she said suddenly. "Stay, please. Teach us your methods, your philosophy. Help us become better." Tay shook his head gently. "Your Highness, you do not need me for that. You have everything you need already. You have the solution to the rift, which your scientists can study and improve. You have the proof of the Kelvin theorem. Most importantly, you have learned something about humility. And besides," Tay continued, "Earth needs me. We are still a young civilization. There is much work to do back home." He walked up the shuttle ramp. At the top, he paused and looked back. "Your Highness, you will live for thousands of years. You will see wonders I cannot imagine. Use that time wisely. Learn from every species you meet, not just the ones you consider great. Share your knowledge freely, and remember that greatness is not measured in years or technology, but in how we treat each other." "I will," Nari promised. Her voice broke. "I will remember." "Good," Tay smiled. "Then this trip was worth more than just saving a planet." The shuttle door began to close. Nari wanted to say more, to thank him properly, to apologize again, but no words came. She simply stood there, watching as the door sealed shut. The shuttle's engines activated with a low hum. It lifted off smoothly and flew through the hangar's atmospheric shield. Nari ran to the edge and looked up, watching as the small ship rose into the pink sky. Other people had gathered now. Her father stood beside her. Kiros was there, along with dozens of other scientists and delegates. They all watched in silence as the human shuttle became smaller and smaller. "He is truly gone," one of Nari's attendants whispered. "Yes," the Emperor said quietly. "We should have done more," Nari said. Tears flowed freely down her face now. "We should have honored him properly." "We did honor him," her father replied. "We listened to him. We learned from him. That is the greatest honor we could give." The shuttle became a bright point of light, then vanished among the stars. Nari stood there for a long time, looking at the sky. Around her, people began to leave, returning to their work and celebrations. But she remained, thinking about the quiet human who had changed everything. That night, she returned to the Great Archive. She went to the Hall of Mathematical Proofs and stood before the Kelvin theorem. Beside it now was the solution credited to Captain Tay of Earth. But what moved her most was the note he had left with it. "This proof belongs to no one and everyone. May all species use it to reach greater understanding. Knowledge is a light that grows brighter when shared, not dimmed." Nari read those words over and over. She thought about Tai's quiet dignity, his refusal of rewards, his generosity of spirit. She had learned more from 3 days with him than from years in the finest academy, and she would never mock anyone again. The galaxy would remember this week as the time when a young civilization saved an old one. But Nari would remember it as the time when a brief burning candle of a man taught an immortal princess what wisdom truly meant. Somewhere among the stars, a small human shuttle flew toward a distant blue planet. And in the celestial palace, a young princess began the slow work of becoming worthy of the lesson she had been taught.